So welcome to the next part of talking, building bridges, talking to conspiracy believers. A bit of a new topic here at ICSA. I am a psychologist and psychotherapist and working at the Federal Office for Cult Affairs for about 14 years now. And since last year, I am the head of this office. And we are a bit of one of the very, very few institutes that are really owned by state. And we have been established 25 years ago by our own federal law. So that gives us quite a good standing. And also because our annual report has to be signed off by Parliament. So it's quite official, and it's and our when we do information as a documentation, information and counseling in connection with so-called cults. So that leaves the field quite wide open, because we don't distinguish between this is a cult and this is not a cult. If someone says it feels like a cult, a family member is acting like in a cult, or has changed a lot in a very short time, then we deal with it. With one exception, and that's that the churches that are legally recognized in Austria are not in our responsibility. And that is quite an restriction, and it's quite annoying to us, because of course there are a lot of cult-like movements and situation also even in Catholic churches and in every kind of churches. So this is this is the problem if you are in this legislative system. It helps us have a lot of advantages, but this is one of the disadvantages. So this was sort of a compromise when our office was established, that the law went through Parliament. So, yeah. And one point that's quite, people often comment on, that they like it that we are ideologically neutral, so we are not part of some institution or some religious group. Yeah, but as we have quite a broad way of seeing what is cult-like, we also get a lot of questions about even political groups, and you see sovereign movements was a big topic in Austria. So we did a lot about these sovereign movements, state rejectionists. In Germany, it's called Reichsbürger. In Austria, we have our own brand. And during the pandemic, the conspiracy theories was a very big part of our work. We got a lot of questions about people getting into this kind of conspiracy theories that have not been before, and the families were under pressure, but also the system. We got a lot of questions also by communal services, by social workers, and we saw that they had problems in dealing with this kind of discussions. Discussions that very often went like this. With someone who was quite aggressive, and normally people reacted in that way, that they try to reason. They say, look, you have a wrong information. This is the right information. Look at it, see, these are the facts. And they hoped that if I can present the facts, people can shed this wrong ideology and be the normal person again. What really happened was more like this. they were not interested, and they got quite aggressive or came with counter arguments. Or on the other hand, they were utterly disinterested, and it seemed like the facts were just bouncing off them. Well, why is having a logic and good arguments so the impact on people? The answer is that we are not really driven by logic. That's something we tell about ourselves, but our reasoning, our decision making, our memory is very prone to error. And even our perception of reality is problematic. I think a lot of you know this as a classic from Hermann Ebbinghaus, which of the gray points is the bigger one. I think most of you know it, which is the bigger one. Now you have not noticed. So which of the gray? You look at the gray bound points, the gray ones. Which one is the bigger one? Yeah, they're the same size, but it's very different. Even if you know, because a lot of us have this in the textbook. At least in Germany and Austria, we all have it in our biology textbooks. Our perception is so strong that it's, I checked it, believe me, I checked it. I'm ashamed to admit, but I did. They're really the same. And if you do this if you do this exercise with small children, they get it right. So they don't see this. This is really something our brain is learning. It's but you see, even you can't even really trust your senses. And conspiracy theories, like any kind of ideology. What I will tell you in the next about half an hour is you can use it for every kind of ideology. Even if it's a political one, it's a religious belief. Strong belief systems always give you a clear sense of reality. This is the reality. Here you see the typical Austrian family, patriotic, beautiful nature, and yeah, the typical countryside, and they're doing typical Austrian things. They segregate, they exclude, they blame others. But it gives you a good feeling. So we against the rest of the world, good against bad. And also you are a hero. You are helping, you're defending the sheeple against evil. And you are part of a community. So you are important, you are valued. You're not alone. And you have some sort of the secret key to knowledge. You understand the pattern, the secret pattern under everything. And you see the pattern that rules the world. And you see here Satan is clearly behind the pandemic. So something we already supposed. But this pattern seeking, our brain is a pattern recognition machine. We find pattern in everything. So you see, it's quite normal to be in a belief system and not so easy to change someone's mind. So if you want to change someone's mind, and you see the disclaimer, don't get your hopes up too much. At first, you have to look at yourself. Think about your own experience. Ask yourself, have you ever given up a political stance, a religion, a socio-political conviction, admiration for a role model, because of a good argument, a good discussion? And if so, if you ever experienced a change in really important belief systems, not the small ones, but the really important ones that are part of yourself, what convinced you to change your view, your worldview? How much time did it take? And that's the next one is something I always ask people who came out of some kind of coercive group. Was there anything anyone could have said or done to make it happen sooner? And you know, I always get the same answer. It was always no, nothing. But obviously people change their positions. And so why? What people, what experiences were important? At what point in your life was that happening? If you're doing a longer workshop, I discuss this a lot with the audience. And it's quite interesting. Sometimes in a whole audience, there is hardly anybody who ever really changed his or her mind about something. It's different here in this conference. I expect almost every one of you made at least one very big change in the worldview. So you can relate better to this than others. But it's interesting how many people say, no, I can't think of anything, no. But they want to change other people's minds. So, so normal people change minds through their personal experience, not because of some intervention from outside. Sometimes it's some kind of sobering incident. You see your guru do something that's impossible for you. Say, no, this is crossing a boundary, or you reach the personal limit. But it could also be a new focus in life. It could be that you changed your job, you changed the country, or even stayed in a hospital for a few weeks. And that was a kind of breaking in your routine, in your pattern. And it goes very slowly, in small steps. And if there's shame involved, it gets quite complicated. So always have this in mind when you think about talking to someone, changing someone's mind. It's really not something you can do. You can have the PowerPoint afterwards. So don't bother. There will be a lot more text here. I will leave it free for putting it up on Uber. So it's not about doing the right thing. It's doing the thing that is really a strategy that is fitting to yourself. And I don't want to give you some kind of strategy, but it's about the state of mind that is more helpful in talking to others. To who you are as a human is more important than what you say or what you do. So it's always about what is fitting to you, what is authentic. And it's very different in what kind of relationship you are. If it's a family member, that's very different than when you're a teacher in front of a classroom, or if you are a major in a city and you have to relate to the people, or police officer. You can escalate, you can de-escalate. Generally, go into this discussion more with the mindset of an explorer, not of a preacher. You don't preach them reality or the right way. That's not working. But be interested in the person. And being more friendly and personable will support your trustworthiness. So we learn from people we love, or at least respect. And putting more pressure is not helpful. More facts, or talking more, or more often, or becoming more and more louder, or something like that. It's not helping. So more pressure is normally counterproductive. So it's more like give a little nudge and pull back. A little nudge and pull back. It's a lot more effective than this one big discussion and where you bring everything you have in your arsenal of methods and knowledge. So it's more about the small cracks that might sometime later be effective or not. But that's not in your hand. So and never expect the quick results. And most of the time you won't know what you did was effective and what not. It might be years after that someone said, yeah, you said this one question and it stayed with me. You can't even remember that you said it because it was so insignificant for you. But for this person, it stayed with the person. So always be aware that you won't see it in a discussion. How often has it happened to you that someone in a discussion said, "Oh, wow, you're right. God, really? I think yeah, God does not exist." So it doesn't even happen with small things. In a discussion, people normally want to save their face. So they keep arguing. Afterwards, they might think about what you said. Afterwards, it might change their life. But you won't see the results. Maybe you will never see the results. But there might be results. And it's a bit more about a little bit more differentiation, a bit out of this black and white. That might be quite a good goal. And always look for the common ground. If you work with fanatics, they sometimes they like to have this this stage to preach, to convert, and it's not really about a conversation. It's it's more and sometimes you are just the just a punching bag, and so in this kind of discussion you feel it quite early if it's possible to use facts. I'm not against using facts. I'm talking about this kind of discussions here where someone is very firm in a belief system, where facts are not effective. In this kind of discussions, it's better to stick to your own expertise. So I don't talk about vaccination. I don't do it. It's not I'm not a medical professional. And I tell this, I say, sorry, but I don't know. It's not, I don't let myself be dragged onto this kind of stage, because sometimes they just want to show me how much they know, and they want more, to missionate, and I just don't agree with that. But I discuss more the source of information. I say, I'm not a doctor, but I had my information from this and this source. This is the way I check up on information. What's your way? Where do you get your information? And that's, you get out of this very emotional discussion to a field that's not so emotional. It's easier to discuss about how to, and we are on the same, we are on the same ground. So this is common ground. We are both not experts. And so we have the same problem. Who do we trust? So, and the way you are talking to someone as a role model might be more effective than the special things you say.
What if you are an expert?
Yeah, if you are an expert, then be an expert. So if you're really a doctor and say, well, I am a doctor, and I know from my private practice, but I would always say, are you interested in my opinion? This is my field of work. This is my experience. Are you interested in? If the person is not interested, don't waste time. But it can be very effective, even if you are working as a politician in a in some kind of could also be in a communal way in a village or so. You can say, well, I can tell you from my experience how politics is working. Are you interested in it? And this could be really helpful. But it's helpful if the person is if the person likes you and think you are trustworthy. And that's, you first have to build the kind of trust and the kind of connection that someone is even willing to listen to you. But with all this connection building and being personable and being human, you can also dare to disagree, especially if some people say things that are hate messages or an attack against group. So with things like conspiracy theories, but also some political messages, if you don't take a stance, it sounds like you agree. So silence is often taken as agreement, even online. You don't need to go into big discussion, but just say, I disagree. I think this is a conspiracy theory. I have another opinion. Say, I think this is really hateful what you say about others. And if you witness someone being the victim of this hate message, please support him. That's really important. Yeah, because even if they're colleagues, you need someone who says, I got your back. I think you are right. I help you. We have a problem that a lot of experts are pulling out of this discussion, pulling out of online discussions because they get so much hate. And so it's important to value them and to help them, to say, I know it's difficult, but I'm happy you're doing this work. I want to, how can I help you? How can I support you? So, really, it's what I tell you is always you can look at your own boundaries. If they are crossed, you have every right to pull also the consequences. And on the other hand, also see if sometimes extremism is, they get a lot of attention with this kind of messages. And sometimes that's what they want. So also see how much attention do you give some with a very extremist. An example in a classroom. If someone says, yes, but the chemtrails. You can use the rest of the of this hour to talk about chemtrails. So see if it is really a good place, and have in mind that there are people who are not in this, that the extremist is not always getting all the attention.
Not a troll.
The Illuminatis are always listening in on my lectures as normal. You know, I get paid by the Freimaurer, what's the name? The Freemasons. So the Illuminatis are always jealous, and this shit. I'm used to it. Yeah. So, but you know, we talked before addressing this common dilemma of complexity. So, how do we find how do we find the good information? Discuss the sources and not the content. So, why do you trust this source? Would you, this YouTuber, would you, when you buy a car, would you also trust the YouTuber? Why? Why not? Generally, who do you trust? And especially if you are in a position, if you're an expert, I would also ask, do you trust me? What would you need to trust me? So conspiracy theories is a lot about the topic of trust, whom to trust. Or if it's a family member and you see there's a lot of aggression, it's very difficult. Go to the middle levels. Like how can we meet each other, see each other, have a conversation without getting into these arguments? So yeah, find together a way. Say, you're important to me. You're a good friend of mine. I want to keep our friendship, but I know this is very stressful for both of us. How can we deal with this rift or these different opinions? And sometimes it's also interesting to see the perspective. So yeah, to say I think you've changed. You have a very negative worldview, and I see that you want to warn others, you want to protect others, and it must be quite frustrating for you that nobody wants to listen to you. How does it feel to you? So also not about the topic, but about how does it make you feel to be in, yeah, maybe cut off from other relationships because of your positions. And it's also better ask questions instead of lectures, but never ask a question if you are not willing and able to listen to the answers. This is very important. You often hear ask questions. Yeah, but questions can be very manipulative. They can be very, they can be about power structure. I have the power to ask you the question. You have to answer. And people have quite a good feeling about if you are really interested in what they have to say, or if you just want them to follow a path that they are leading you. So in these questions, it's always about the intent behind it. And it's not so much about the answers. Don't expect wonderful answers. Questions are something that people take away. It's like a doggy bag they take home, and maybe they can have a longer impact, maybe not. But it's a good question can be very helpful. A question can be, what would convince you that you have been taken in by a conspiracy? What would it be? What would I even say to convince you? What solutions do you have? How plausible is it? Yeah, these are more about conspiracy theories, but yeah. If you want to, if you have yourself an example of where it changed your mind, you can also use this example. I think Esther Friedman told in a lecture yesterday, she talked about a question her husband told her. The question was, are you sure you are not manipulated? You're not being manipulated. I think this was wow, it's a good question. And it's about in what kind of tone of voice you ask this. This can be very aggressive, very, hey, are you sure? And it can be, hey, are you really sure? So if you want to train this, there are groups like Street Epistemology, they meet up at Discord and they have their own kind of asking questions with an open mind. They train it together. And it's also interesting to look at the motives of someone. Why is someone interested in conspiracy theories or in any kind of ideology? There's always a good reason behind it. To listen, is it about being adrift in a world where you want some sort of guidelines, or is it being in a community, or is it about being valued in this community? What's the motivation? Why is it so relevant to this person? And what's the consequences? Because especially toxic worldviews are not good for the physical for the health. They are often getting more depressed, more anxious, and you might be possible to talk about that. So when it's about family and friends, I have two. I have one about the being a professional as a therapist, and this one is for family and friends. If in any way possible, stay in contact, except if it's really about your boundaries and you have always the right to save yourself or your children. But if possible, it's the same as it is in cult-like institutions. The family is the last thing that stays, and the first place for some people to reconnect outside of the group. So if there is possible to stay in contact, do it and focus on the relationship to the person, not on this ideology. So sometimes it might be good to avoid conflict zones. In Christmas 2021 and 22, there are a lot of people says we don't talk about COVID under the Christmas tree. So this was, and for some families, it was very important to even be able to talk to meet up. On the other hand, build up your own tolerance muscles, because it's very easy to say, they are wrong, they have to change, I don't want to hear it, it's so stressful. Yes, it's stressful, the world is stressful, so deal with it, and learn to accept other opinions. And yeah, it's so in a way, accept that there are other worldviews, that they might not change. And families is very interesting in this regard, because you will meet people here that you won't ever see in any other context. You won't have them in your friends group, but you are stuck with them in the family. So it's yeah, it's stressful, but it's good for us. So to be in contact with people who are different, who think of different things, who like different things. Yeah, so see, what do I value about a person, regardless of the ideology? Set limits when necessary, but also accept the limits of your own responsibility. You are not here to change, yeah, to change someone's you. So it's to, and don't mock, don't shame the person. It's never helping anyone. And be patient, because it might take years, maybe, if someone changes. Maybe not, maybe never. And it could still be a good relationship to this person. If you're a counselor with a client, then it's quite different. Always have in mind, what is my role in this relationship? It is not your job to talk about politics or to tell them if they are wrong or not wrong about vaccination or whatever. They have a lot of people that can do this in the rest of their life. In a kind of client, in a therapeutic setting, is one of the very few places where they can reflect about the changes in their life, about what it does to them, about how it, on a sort of a meta level. And this is a very precious possibility here. So that's not so easy, because sometimes some of these ideologies and sometimes of these things are very stressful, and they might hurt yourself or they might irritate you a lot. But this is part of being a professional. To you have to deal it with yourself, and you have to be here for the client and talk. But you can talk about the relationship. Sometimes they want to say, do you see it the same? They want to check up if you see it the same. And that's a trap. Don't talk about the topics. But what difference would it make to you if you say, yes, I think the same? Well, no, I don't think. What does it do to you? So, do you recognize has there been any changes, or what are the impacts? How some of this ideology makes you an outsider in the society. Is this something that you're familiar with? Are you reproducing a familiar role of always being the outsider? Or sometimes have experienced it the first time with the conspiracy theories. So it was quite a shock to them that suddenly they were out of the mainstream. How have relationships changed? Are there some risks you take? Are you a danger to others? And is this this ideology, sometimes it's to fill a vacuum, sometimes it's making a lot of noise, and there is a real issue that the person should address. Yeah, and if the person says to you, well, you are part of the system, I can't talk to you. Also interesting. Then you can talk about, well, how do you trust anybody? How could I gain your trust? I've collaborated with two projects with RAN. RAN is Radicalization Awareness Network in the European Union. The one is an online learning program where you get some, what's it called, some little videos and informations, and it's really about if you have a problem with a family member and you are creating a sort of workbook where you can write down your however the tips are concerning your own family. And the other one is more it's a publication about also how to deal with this in the family. Almost at the end. I wrote a book with German physicians, about all these kind of discussions, how to talk with someone who is, totally in a different kind of worldview, how to bridge it. And there's a lot about our work in the Bundesstelle für Sektenfragen, about my working experience.